Let's take a look at one of the great wonders of the solar system, Valles Marineris. This gargantuan canyon stretches 3,000 miles across the surface of Mars, and cuts 4 times deeper than the Grand Canyon. It defies every conventional attempt to explain it. And from the electric viewpoint of the cosmos, it may be the scar of a cosmic thunderbolt. One that gave Mars one heck of a facelift. When the Mariner probes returned the first pictures of this continental-scale trench, many proposed catastrophic flooding as the cause. But after scrutinizing later images, no outwashing or debris fields left by erosion or ponding could be found. There was no kind of recognizable drainage systems, just short tributaries ending in cleanly cut alcoves. Later probes reported finding olivine in deep strata in the chasm. And since olivine readily reacts with water, its presence clearly excludes ideas of water erosion. So what is this mysterious force that could have removed 2 million cubic kilometers from the Martian surface? Well, geologists began to speculate about unknown causes of surface spreading and mass wasting on a scale never imagined. Prior models of planetary evolution had envisioned an isolated and inactive surface, remaining undisturbed for billions of years. At best, only modest internal geology was anticipated, and certainly nothing on the scale of Valles Marineris. In the early 1970s, however, one of the true scientific pioneers of the 20th century, Ralph Juergens, proposed that in an earlier epoch of planetary upheaval, electrical arcs between celestial bodies created many of the geologic features of the Moon and Mars. As for Valles Marineris, Juergens wrote in 1974, quote, "This entire region resembles nothing so much as an area zapped by a powerful electric arc, advancing unsteadily across the surface, occasionally splitting in two and now and then weakening, so that its traces narrow and even degrade into lines of disconnected craters." End quote. In the years that followed Juergens' groundbreaking work, Wallace Thornhill and his collaborators pushed forward, making great strides in the investigation of electric discharge and the solar system's evolution. A flood of data from other planets and moons has reinforced their work, all pointing to the role of electric discharge in sculpting the surface of these bodies. According to Thornhill, quote, "Valles Marineris was created within minutes by a giant electric arc sweeping across the surface of Mars. Rock and soil were lifted into space, and some fell back to create the great, strewn fields of boulders seen by the Viking and Pathfinder landers." End quote. Now, Thornhill suggests that the discharge across the Martian surface took the characteristic form of one of the most majestic cosmic discharges in the universe, the barred spiral galaxy. As in arc welding, material from the electrode will be accelerated upward against gravity. This means that any electrical event capable of creating the likes of Valles Marineris is going to have no problem sending all that rock and debris into space. While many of the rocks would encircle the planet and then crash back down, other materials likely escaped the fray and actually found their way to Earth and the other planets across the ages. This explains why we find Martian rocks here on Earth. Up until the signature of Martian atmosphere in these meteorites was ID'd beyond reasonable doubt, the experts said that such rocks could never have achieved escape velocity from Mars without being vaporized by the explosive forces required. The event that created Valles Marineris lofted into space something like 10,000 trillion tons of rock and dust. This can only mean that there have been far more Martian meteorites and dustfalls on Earth than geologists have recognized. Now let's look at a few other strange features. Check out these surface depressions. They're more than just a dent in the conventional theories. They are clear markers of electric discharge, and more proof of how the surface was sculpted by the electric force. Planetary scientists have cooked up a diverse cadre of explanations for each of these features, even though so many of them are basically identical, other than the locations where we find them. For those familiar with the electric universe, this is no mystery. These cleanly scooped out depressions are markers of electric discharge. Anything from great domes and massive trenches to networks of undulating grooves and dense fields of craters. To anyone who hasn't had the common sense trained out of them, all these features were clearly machined by electric discharge. Sometimes the specialists call these depressions collapsed pits associated with faulting, and sometimes they call them a chain of small pits over an emptied lava tube, or impact crater chains. These three images are from the summit of Olympus Mons, dubbed the most massive volcano in the solar system. Here's a shot of the flat-bottom craters of the caldera. In the EU view, this is no volcano. How do we know? Because Olympus Mons, the craters of the caldera, and the smaller crater complexes next to it are easily replicable in a laboratory, using electric discharge into soil with the same composition as the Martian surface. Now back to Valles Marineris and the arc that likely cut it from the surface. Discharge filaments are rotating pairs of Birkeland currents. If the local electric field is mostly horizontal, the filaments will tend to cut a smooth, sinuous groove as it rips across the surface. But what if the local electric field is more vertical, and the surface is a cathode in the exchange? That is, the negatively charged electrode, where electrons flow out, rather than an anode, which is positively charged. Now, if this happens, the arc may act in several ways. It might stick briefly to one point before jumping to another, forming a chain of separate craters, or it could jump to the rim of the newly formed crater, creating the elongated scoop. A series of these overlapping craters will form a pitted, flat-floored channel with scalloped edges. You can see all of these variations, and the multiple effects from these manifestations of plasma discharge can all be seen in the cross-section of Valles Marineris. Reconstructing the electrical events that produce the canyon means taking a close look at the other details of the trench. Take a look at Tharsis Rise in which it cuts, along with Olympus Mons and other immense domes in the anomalous, uplifted area. Take one good look at all these pits, scoops, and gouges seen across Mars. It's like a giant router blade came out of the sky and skipped across the surface. Once you see it, it's hard to go back to believing water or hidden lava tubes with no rubble or outflows did this. When you examine these images, consider the larger context pictures of Olympus Mons and Valles Marineris. An advantage of electric arcs in industrial applications, electric discharge machining or EDM, is their ability to cut flat surfaces cleanly to predetermined depths. Layers of material are excavated and removed with great precision. And that, according to the EU model, is exactly what occurred on Mars. If the electrical theorists and plasma cosmologists are emphatic on this point, it's because no internal geological force known to science can achieve these same effects. And that's something worth considering.